Okay, so we did the welcome, the project background. NPA Mini Grants. NPA stands for Neighborhood Public Art Mini Grants. It's a project that's been around for the last 10 years, over 10 years. It's a $65,000 general fund commitment that City Council has made. So we know for sure that we'll have that amount every year. And then we tend to have about 8 awards, 8 to 9 projects that we can actually award each year. We're not ready to move forward. Hold on a second.
Oh.
I just want to give a quick overview of the background. Sorry. So as far as this particular project is concerned, we're especially interested in having community engagement of some type for the projects. And that means that you don't necessarily have to live in Richmond, but your project actually has to be in Richmond. That's one of the main questions that many people have been asking. So this evening, as far as the background is concerned, if you have made it to this session, that means that you have the RFP. There's a 2-part process, the request for proposals. So that means just a small proposal of what your concept might be. And Linson's going to go into the application, evaluation, and selection process. Shawnee is going to talk about the budget. I'll talk about the interview and presentations that we need to make a selection. Then we'll talk, Linson will talk about the liaisons who will help you if you're selected through your project. Q&A. We'll answer questions that you might have, and then final comments. So since we have started a little bit late, we're going to try to streamline our comments. But if you have never applied before, then we need you to stay for the second hour. If you have applied before, then you're already familiar with all the parts to the project, but you do need to be here for the first hour until 7 o'clock to make sure that you receive all the basic information. So as we're speaking, if you have never heard of some of the terms that we refer to or some of the requirements for the city, then you especially need to stay for the second hour, because we're not going to go into all the details of explaining the reason why you need insurance and what the schedule is and some of the basic things that people who have applied and received awards before, not just applied, you're already familiar with the contract requirements and those kinds of things. So with that, Linson.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you, Winifred.
Yes.
So in terms of the application evaluation and selection process, Winifred and the commissioners made an effort this year to improve the quality of this application package. We have gotten a lot of feedback on it. So we hope that you find it easy to understand and to complete. And just so you know, we're constantly working to clarify and streamline our processes to try to make things as easy as possible on applicants. So please note that there are 2 parts to the application, as Winifred indicated. There's a 5-page request for proposal, which includes information about the grant program, all of the instructions and items that need to be paid attention to as you are filling out your application. And especially pay attention to such things as the things to be considered section, which is at the end of the RFP. And then the actual application itself, which is 4 pages long. So please fully complete the application, answer all of the questions, and provide any documentation that is requested and that is available for you to share about your proposed project. Know that any incomplete applications will not be considered, so you don't want to lose out just because your application was incomplete or not received on time. As regards your budget request, we are requesting proposals with requests for between $2,500 and $9,000. The city paperwork requirements are very similar whether you request $2,500 or $9,000, so plan accordingly. Please give Winifred, send Winifred an email if you have any questions as you are working to complete your proposal. For the evaluation and selection process, we have a subcommittee of the commission that has agreed to take on this task. Once the proposals are received, and remember the deadline of April 28th at 12 noon not 5 p.m., but 12 noon. So once the proposals are received, they will be reviewed for completeness as the first step. After the review is completed, which will only take a couple of days, depending upon how many we receive, they will be turned over to the Grant Review Committee, who will follow an established process for reviewing and scoring each proposal. The commissioners have an established protocol for assigning points to different aspects of the proposal, focusing on 1, the project description. So does your proposal clearly express what the project is about, what you hope to accomplish, how it will benefit the community? Number 2, artist experience. Does the proposed artist have experience with this type of project? If not, why, and what might be special circumstances that would make this not critical to the success of your project? Number 3, community outreach and engagement. Who is your community? Who are you trying to reach with this project, and how do you plan to do that, and how will they benefit? And then number 4, feasibility, a fair and reasonable budget. Is your budget aligned with your project? Have you requested enough funding to complete your project? Do you plan to have funding from other sources? If so, from whom? What kind of supplies will you need? Will you be paying other people for their services, etc.? And then the 5th area is the oral presentation. So this will be reserved for the finalists who will be requested to participate in an oral presentation, likely to be via Zoom. And this will be an opportunity for committee members to ask any questions they might have about your project, and for you to tell us about your project in your own words. So a total of 20 points can be awarded, and the finalists will be the top scoring proposals. Remember, when formulating your goals and objectives, goals are what you hope to accomplish with your project, and the outcomes are things that can be measured that show that you have achieved your goals. And then reporting out. So please plan to document your project activities in preparation for completing your final report form. This form will be made available to you once you receive your contract. It reflects a simple reporting format. If you take photos and plan to share, please plan to get the proper releases from adult individuals in the photos. And to be on the safe side, be careful not to include the faces of any children who might be participating. Tally your outcomes. Remember, they are to be measurable, and keep track of all of your receipts. They will be needed by the accounting department when you file your final invoice. And Ms. Shanae Johnson will talk more about that when she goes over the budget. So, okay, that's it for that item. We're ready for the
Okay, so
budget.
now we're going to look at it in more detail. You can go to the next slide. And Linson, as you go through the pages of the RFP, just let Kaylin know next page or some way to
Okay.
move. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, next that's the application. Before the application is the RFP. Kaylin, do you see it? Okay, good. There we go.
Can you
No,
make it larger?
that's not the RFP
Oh.
for this project, though.
That's
This-
the large art commission.
Yeah, we're going to talk about this one in the second hour. It should say RFP for NPA. Sorry, all the acronyms. This is not the right one. Sorry. It has probably a number 1 next to it. Or maybe not. But it should say NPA RFP. There we let me know if you don't see it.
Kaylin, if you go ahead and stop sharing, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I'll go ahead and share it with everybody. I have it pulled up on this end.
Okay.
All right, here we go.
Thank you, Shanae.
No worries. All right, let's see. Let's get you guys looking at what I'm looking at. Can you confirm if you can see this?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
Can
Linson?
you, yeah, can
Is
you
it-
scroll? Can you make
Is
it a
it-
little smaller? There you go. There you go.
Okay. Can you see it now?
Can you scroll for me?
Yes, ma'am. I can
Okay,
make it even
so
smaller if you need to.
there you go. That's better. Okay,
Okay.
perfect. Okay. So the purpose of the mini grant is to provide local artists and nonprofit arts organizations and community members with funding for their public art projects that benefit the Richmond community, as Winifred said earlier. And it also builds community, enables artists to pass on their skills by involving the participation of other residents in the projects. We've had some projects lately where individuals in the community are actually being funded as part of larger projects, not necessarily the mini grants, because there's not a lot of money in those grants, but in some of our larger grants, we're seeing that artists are actually being invited to come in and learn how to do certain types of art, different art forms. So the eligible art forms is very broad. So this is arts and culture. So we're doing visual arts, and that's all kinds of visual arts. And we're also doing performing arts. And we actually are really interested in seeing some projects that have some literary value to them. So that would be great if that's the way that you express your artist self. Through literature or through writing, or can be poetry, whatever, that you share that with folks in the community. That's also something that we are interested in. So can you scroll down? Page 2. All right, so eligibility. So Richmond artists, so artists that live in Richmond, and then Richmond-based arts organizations can apply as individuals. You can be part of a team, you can have partners, and also nonprofit arts organizations, which have done in the past. We've had a number of grants awarded to arts organizations. And so, and then if you are an individual, you need a fiscal agent. And so oftentimes local nonprofits will act in that capacity because we need a place to be able to send the money. So, and also if you are already engaged in a creative project and you need more funding, that's also something that we will consider. So let's see, and then ineligible for-profit organizations don't qualify for the grant. And also if you're an employee or you're a relative of an employee or a commissioner or any appointed official, then you're not going to be eligible for this grant because that presents a possible conflict of interest. So mini grant award amounts, as I said earlier, range between $2,500 and $9,000. Once you reach that $5,000 threshold, you're going to be required to have a business license, and you can include that as one of your expenses in your budget. And then in terms of how you get your funds, once you have a contract and your contract is completed, you can submit an invoice to receive half of your grant upfront. And then you'll receive the balance of that grant at the end of the project when you submit your final report. So I went over the selection process. Let's see. We currently have a total of about 65,000. We have a little flexibility with that. So we'll have to see what we receive in terms of proposals and what the commissioners decide that they want to fund. In terms of how much the final amount will be that we will award. We have some other pots that we can reach into. So next page. So let's see, here we go. I went over the proposal review process. You saw that. This is how we score it. We do 1 to 5 points for each criteria. And then we have a maximum of 20, actually it's just 20 points. I thought it was 25 because don't we do points? I thought we do points for the oral presentation, but it looks like that's not in here. So not sure if it's 20 or 25 points. So, and then those who are invited, the semifinalists will be invited to make presentations. Again, I said that earlier. And then here is the schedule. So pay attention to this calendar. The applications are due on the 28th. We'll do our review between the 28th, and then the virtual interviews will be May 24th and 25th. So be on the lookout for an invitation. And then on June the 8th, we meet to finalize the selection of the awardees. And in early July, we will make the announcements. And by August, we hope to have everybody who's going to have a contract under contract. So make sure as you're, if you become one of those individuals that is going to end up receiving a contract, that you pay attention to the things to be considered section in the RFP. You want to scroll down, Shanae? Let's see, I think that's on the next page. So the grant duration. So if we award you a contract in August, that gives you all the way until June 30th of 2024 to do your project. It was a big change for us because we have been not having our contracts available until January of the contract year. So now you're actually going to get another extra 4 months to do your project, which is really a great thing. We really push for that. So I talked about that when you finish your project and you submit your final report, that's when you get your final payment. Let's see, submission of proposals. You have to make sure that you have all your papers. So depending on your project, if you have a complicated project or a project that's unusual, that needs permissions from people or permissions from Public Works Department or those kinds of things, make sure that you get those things taken care of before you submit your application, and so that you can have a complete application. The electronic proposals, you're going to submit these online in our secure system. And so we're not accepting proposals dropped off in person. So make sure that you figure out how to do that. If you have any questions about that, send Winifred an email. And then, oh, I see here we have the proposals are due on April 28th at 5 p.m. I'm sorry, I told you earlier it was 12 noon. This here says 5 p.m. So please pay attention, 5 p.m. I apologize for that error on April 28th. For questions, email Winifred. All right. And so can I have the next page? And then this is the things to consider section. Pay attention to all of these items because some of these are must-haves and must-dos. And so you're going to you may have to have insurance. So you're going to check on that to make sure that for your project, you may need to have it. If not, and then you're going to have invoices. And so pay attention to all these things to consider, these 10 things. Okay. And then if you have a project where people are going to be gathering in closed space, then make sure you give consideration to any COVID-19 safety measures that you need to, as needed. We want to make sure that we keep people safe, okay? So I think that's it for the RFP. Do we want to walk through the application itself?
Yes, please.
Okay. Let's see, any questions? Okay, great. Great.
Kaylin, do you have the application itself ready, or do you want me to screen share that one?
Yes, I can do that.
Okay. And while she's pulling that up, I just want to remind folks that you can use the question and answer feature if you have any questions along the way that maybe I could provide, an answer to by typing it out to you, or if it's something that the panelists see, we can answer live. Just wanted to give you guys that option.
And we also want to make sure, because it was people were unable earlier to write their names to as evidence that you're actually here this evening. Since it's a mandatory meeting, put your name and your email address in the Q&A. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Which they haven't done. I only see 5 comments in the Q&A. So everybody make sure you actually sign in the Q&A section.
I see several, I think.
Oh, do you? I only
yeah,
see 5 in mine. Okay. All right, so let's just do a quick walkthrough of the application form itself. Again, the important dates are at the top, and my apologies, the deadline is April 28th at 5 p.m. And everything else is the same as I talked about previously. So you're gonna just, this is a really wonderful application form, thanks to Shanae, who set this up for us. So you just click and tap here to enter your information. You're gonna put the name of the project, where the project is going to be located, who the project manager or the primary contact is, their address, and then a phone number and an email. So you must have an email. And then you're going to click off, you're going to answer these eligibility questions. So are you a resident? Yes, no. Are you 18? Yes, no. Did you attend this session? Yes, no. See, there's a yes check there. And also there's another option so that if people weren't able to make it tonight, we're going to have a video that people can also check out, and we're going to monitor attendance use of that video as well. So prior grant awards, this is where we want to know if you've received money in the past from the City of Richmond, either the City of Richmond or actually through an NPA mini grant. So have you applied or been awarded a City of Richmond grant before? This does not include the NPA mini grant, and that's a yes, no, when, how much. And then have you been awarded an NPA mini grant before? Yes or no? If yes, then how many times have you received an award? And just because you've received one in the past doesn't mean that we will not consider you fully for one this time around too. We just want to know. And if you had received grants in the past, then let us know when and how much, okay? And then here we're asking you to describe any prior projects for which you were awarded grants in 150 words or less. So we don't need a whole bunch of information, but we want to know what kind of projects you did before for us. Okay, then application requirements. We're here today. Then we want to make sure that you complete and sign your application, that you include a resume or a bio, that you include your budget, that if you're going to be installing art on private property, we need a permission letter from the person who owns that property. If you're providing images of prior work, that's optional, but there's a place to upload those, and also supporting materials, anything that has to do about your work as an artist. And there's no exceptions to the above application requirements. So make sure you complete all of these, because if you don't complete all of these, then you're going to have an incomplete proposal, and then we're going to disqualify that proposal. So if you have additional participants who are going to be helping you with that project, if it's a team effort, a group, or you just have one partner, make sure you click on here and add that person's information. Then you're going to check what kind of art you're going to be proposing. And so you have all these other options. If none of yours are listed here, then click this other box and type in what it's going to be. And then describe your project, 300 words or less. So we don't need a whole lot of information, but go back to what I said about having a good description of what your project is, where it's going to be, who's your target audience, and all those kinds of things. So and then we have a place here for goals. So then we're going to have you describe your art experience and your background. So tell us who you are as an artist. We want to know about that. And then what are the top 3 goals for your project? So goals are the things that you hope to accomplish, and make them reasonable for your project. Don't, have great, expansive, huge goals if you just have a little project, but make the goals important to your project. What is it that you hope to accomplish with this project? And then here, number 9, you're going to describe who your target audience is, or who the community is that is going to benefit from your project. And then you're going to tell us about the community activities that you're going to include in your project. Can you scroll up a little bit, Kaylin, please? Thank you. And these are really important. 9 and 10, when we look through these applications, we really want to see something substantial here, because one of the main purposes of this grant program is how it benefits the community. And we want to know how you're going to be maybe building capacity in the community for people to be able to do different kind of art. So you just make sure that you are, do a good job here. And then you're going to list 3 measurable outcomes from your project. Again, they don't have to be huge, but we want things that you can count. How many people participate? How many pieces of art did you create? How many whatevers were affected, impacted by this project? So you figure out, based upon your top 3 goals here, what your measurable outcomes are going to be. Then we're going to have the start and end dates of the project. So the start date will be whenever you get your contract completed and you're ready to start. And then the end date here, if it's not June 30th, then let us know what that date is. And then you're going to give us an estimated number of people impacted by this project. You know, some people's projects might impact 10 people or 15 people, and some people's projects might impact 100 people. It doesn't matter. It matters as it relates to the project that you are proposing. We're not looking for a magic number here. Okay, can you scroll up, please? Then you're going to tell us what category your grant request falls within. Is it going to be 2,500 for 4,999, or is it going to be 5,000 to 9,000? So you're just going to check one of those boxes. And then this is your budget table here. So we want to know not only your budget for the project that you're asking for funds from the NPA Mini Grant, but we also want to know if you have other revenue sources. Okay, and then we have the possible expenditures. So what are you going to need to spend money on in order to accomplish your project? No more than 25% going to administration fees, but we also want you to include stipends if you're going to pay others to help you with your project. Again, materials and